I knew the moment the question was asked that my life was about to split into two versions. One, where I lied and saved my career, and one where I told the truth and risked everything. Karen from HR didn't look angry. That somehow made it worse. She folded her hands on the conference table and spoke in a calm voice that sounded like she had asked this same question 100 times before. Ben, I'm going to ask directly. Did you send a personal message to Madison that crossed professional boundaries? My throat went dry. Madison sat beside me, still, calm, professional. Exactly the way she looked in every leadership meeting. Except this time, we weren't discussing code or deadlines. We were discussing the text message that had detonated my quiet, safe life. Karen slid a printed sheet across the table. I didn't need to read it. I already knew every word. You're truly captivating. I know this might cross a line, but I'd regret not saying it. My chest tightened. The room felt too bright, too quiet. Karen's voice came again. Ben, we received a concern this morning. Before this becomes a formal complaint, I want to give both of you the opportunity to clarify the situation. Clarify. That was a polite way of saying confess. I glanced sideways. Madison wasn't looking at me. She was looking straight ahead, composed, controlled, untouchable. Exactly the woman who had walked into our engineering department 6 months ago and quietly taken command of the entire room without raising her voice once. Exactly the woman who had knocked on my apartment door at 10 o'clock last night. My heart slammed against my ribs. Karen waited. Ben, she said again. I swallowed. There's context. I managed. Karen raised an eyebrow slightly. Then this is the time to provide it. My brain screamed at me to be careful, safe, controlled. My entire life had been built around those two words. My name is Ben Carter. I'm 29 years old. I'm a software developer who likes predictable routines and quiet apartments, and the kind of life where nothing dramatic ever happens. Or at least that's the life I had yesterday morning, before one stupid mistake rewired everything. Madison finally turned her head and looked at me. Her expression wasn't angry. It wasn't embarrassed either. It was something worse. Honest. Ben, she said quietly. Her voice was steady, but there was something underneath it. Something that made my pulse jump. Tell the truth. Just like that. No warning. No escape. My lungs felt tight. Karen watched both of us carefully now. I accidentally sent a message, I said slowly. Karen leaned back slightly. Accidentally? Yes. Madison didn't interrupt, didn't react. She just watched me. And suddenly I was back in my apartment the night before. Back on my gray couch with one sock half on my foot and my laptop glowing on the coffee table. Back in the moment when my phone buzzed. Back when everything had still been simple. The message had been meant for my best friend, Brian. Brian believed two things about me. One, that I was too careful for my own good. And two, that my quiet crush on our new head of engineering was the most obvious secret in Boston. We had been texting about it. Mostly him making fun of me. Mostly me insisting nothing would ever happen because Madison was my boss and I was not stupid. Then he sent a message. A hypothetical message. Something bold but not creepy. Something honest. You're truly captivating. I know this might cross a line, but I'd regret not saying it. I copied it to paste back into our chat, just to show him how ridiculous it sounded. My thumb moved. The wrong thread opened. The message sent. And for 3 seconds, the world simply stopped working. Delivered. Seen. My heart had hit my ribs so hard I thought I might faint. I stared at the screen like maybe reality would reload if I waited long enough. Then, her reply appeared. I'm coming over to your place now. I had read it 4 times. My brain refusing to process the words. Why would she come over? To fire me. To warn me. To tell me I had crossed a line so far there was no coming back. My address was in the company directory. 10 minutes later, someone knocked on my door. Not hesitant, not uncertain. A calm, deliberate knock, the kind that belongs to someone who already knows you're standing on the other side. I opened it. Madison stood there, hair down, no office blazer, Just a dark coat folded over her arm and that same calm, focused expression she carried into every meeting. "Ben," she said. 2 syllables. Simple. Heavy. "Can I come in?" Every alarm in my brain screamed, no. My body stepped aside anyway. She walked into my tiny apartment like she was entering a quiet library. Slow. Observant. Taking in the worn couch, the cheap lamp, the glowing laptop. Then she turned back toward me. "Relax," she said. "I'm not here to ruin your life." That had not helped. "I'm really sorry," I blurted. "That message wasn't meant for you. I was texting my friend and—" "Stop." Her voice was firm but not angry. "I read it, Ben." The silence that followed was unbearable. "You called me captivating," she continued. "You said you'd regret not saying it." My throat tightened. I panicked. "Why?" "Because you're my boss," I admitted. "Because I need this job. Because the last thing I want is to make you uncomfortable." She studied me carefully, like she was evaluating code that almost worked but had one hidden flaw. Then she said something I hadn't expected. "I didn't come here to yell at you." I blinked. "Then why are you here?" For the first time since arriving, her confidence slipped just a little. Not much, just enough to reveal the person underneath the title. "Because," she said quietly, "I couldn't sit in my apartment pretending that message didn't matter." The air shifted. Something electric moved through the room. My pulse jumped. "What do you mean?" I asked. Madison looked straight into my eyes and said the sentence that started everything. "I came here because part of me wanted to know if you meant it." The room felt smaller suddenly, warmer, dangerous. My voice failed. Madison stepped a little closer. Not enough to touch. Just enough that I could smell the faint scent of her shampoo. "You're a careful person, Ben," she said. "I've noticed that about you." I swallowed. That's usually a good quality. Quote, usually. Her eyes searched my face, but careful people sometimes hide what they actually feel. My heart was beating so loudly I was sure she could hear it. "I didn't send that message on purpose," I said. "That wasn't the question." The silence stretched. Then she asked it, soft, direct. "Do you feel it?" Quote. I froze. Because I knew exactly what she meant. And because answering that question meant stepping off the safest path I had ever built for myself. For 29 years, I had avoided complicated choices. Avoided messy emotions. Avoided risks. But standing there in my apartment with Madison, watching me like the answer mattered, I realized something terrifying. I didn't want to lie. So I took a breath and told her the truth. Yes. Her expression changed. Not dramatic, just a quiet shift, like a door opening 1 inch. And that was the moment everything stopped being simple. Because Madison Whitman looked at me, really looked at me, and said 5 words that rewrote my entire life. "I was hoping you'd say that." Quote, "And I didn't realize it yet. But that single sentence was going to cost one of us our job." For a few seconds after Madison said those 5 words, neither of us moved. "I was hoping you'd say that." The sentence hung in the air between us like something fragile, something that could break if either of us breathed too fast. I remember thinking 2 things at the exact same time. First, that this was the most dangerous moment of my adult life. Second, that I didn't want it to end. Madison looked around my apartment slowly. The worn gray couch, the half-open laptop, the stack of takeout boxes I had forgotten to throw away. "I didn't expect your place to look like this," she said. I blinked. "Like what?" She shrugged lightly. "Normal." I laughed nervously. That's not usually the word people use. She glanced back at me. "You're nervous." "That obvious?" "You're practically vibrating." She wasn't wrong. My brain was running through every possible disaster scenario. HR complaints, career damage, office rumors, being the guy who flirted with his boss and blew up 6 years of work. And yet Madison didn't look like someone walking into a disaster. She looked thoughtful, careful, almost relieved. "You said you meant it," she said quietly. Yes. And it wasn't just your friend daring you? No. She studied my face for a moment longer. Then she did something that surprised me. She exhaled. Not dramatically. Just a slow breath, like someone releasing tension they had been holding for months. Good, she said. My eyebrows lifted. Good. I was afraid you were going to take it back. I almost did. She smiled faintly. That would have been disappointing. My brain struggled to keep up. You're not upset? Madison shook her head slightly. No. Not even a little? Her eyes softened. Ben, if I was upset, I wouldn't be standing in your living room at 10 at night. Fair point. She walked a few steps toward the window. The street light from the alley cast a soft glow across the room. At work, Madison always felt composed, structured, like a perfectly written piece of code. But right now, she looked more human than I had ever seen her. You want to know something strange? She asked. Sure. When that message appeared on my phone, my first reaction wasn't anger. What was it? Quote. She hesitated, then she said it quietly. Relief. That word landed harder than anything else she had said. Relief? Madison nodded slowly. For months, I've been careful around you. I frowned. Careful? Yes. Why? She gave me a small look. You really don't see it? Quote. I see my boss, who terrifies half the department. She laughed softly. That's not what I meant. She turned back toward me. You're different from the others. How? You don't try to impress me. Because I assume it won't work. Exactly. Her smile widened slightly. Most people in leadership roles get surrounded by ambition, people trying to prove something. She gestured toward me. You just do your job. I shrugged. That's the assignment. But you also listen. I blinked. Listen? Yes. Her voice softened. You're the only person in my department who asks questions that aren't about getting ahead. That hit me harder than I expected. I had never thought about it that way. I thought you were just a good boss, I said. She looked at me for a long moment. Sometimes that's all anyone wants to see. Something in her tone felt heavier than the words. You're lonely, I said before I could stop myself. The sentence slipped out. The moment it did, I expected her to shut down. Instead, she looked surprised. Is it that obvious? Not to most people. But to you? I nodded slowly. She gave a quiet laugh. That's exactly the problem. We stood there in silence again. Then Madison said something I didn't expect. I have a son. I straightened slightly. I didn't know that. Most people at the office don't. How old? 9. The number made everything feel suddenly real. Not flirtation. Not fantasy. Real life. He lives in California with his dad during the school year, she said. I visit when I can. Summers he comes here. That must be hard. She nodded. It is. Quote. For a moment, she looked down at her hands. Then she said something that felt more vulnerable than anything else that night. My divorce was messy. I didn't ask questions. She continued anyway. Workplace romance was part of the reason. My stomach tightened. Someone in your company? Yes. And it ended badly. Very. She met my eyes again. That's why I don't mix work and personal life anymore. The implication hung in the air. Until now. Then why are you here? I asked quietly. Madison didn't answer right away. Instead, she walked a little closer. Close enough that the space between us felt charged. Because when I read your message, she said slowly, for the first time in a long time, someone saw me as a person instead of a title. My chest tightened. I do see you. I know. Her voice dropped softer. That's why this is dangerous. My brain tried to re-engage. This could destroy your reputation. Possibly. My job. Yes. The department. Also possible. I rubbed the back of my neck. Then this is a terrible idea. Quote. Madison tilted her head slightly. Probably. Then why does it not feel like one? That question stayed in the room. Neither of us answered it. Instead, Madison reached into her coat pocket. She pulled out her phone. For the record, she said calmly. Your message was well written. I blinked. That's what you took away from it? Quote, I'm an engineer. I appreciate efficient communication. Despite the tension, I laughed. Brian wrote most of it. Brian? My best friend. The message was meant for him. She raised an eyebrow. So you accidentally confessed to your boss instead? Yes. That's one way to accelerate things. The humor helped. Just enough for the panic in my chest to loosen slightly. Then Madison's expression grew serious again. Ben. Yeah? If we pretend tonight didn't happen, things go back to normal. My stomach dropped. Normal? Yes. Meaning? You stay on your team. You keep your career path. And we never cross this line again. That sounded safe, responsible, logical. Everything my life had always been built around. But the idea made my chest feel hollow. And the other option? I asked quietly. Madison looked directly into my eyes. We don't pretend. My pulse jumped. That means we deal with the consequences. HR. Yes. Transfer. Probably. Office gossip. Definitely. She took another step closer, but it also means we find out if this is real. The distance between us was almost gone now. I could feel the warmth from her body. My heart pounded. Ben, she said softly, I need to know something before this goes any further. What? Her voice dropped just above a whisper. Are you choosing this because it's exciting or because you actually want me? The question landed heavier than any risk, because answering it meant stepping past fear. I took a breath and said the only honest thing I could. I've wanted you since your first week. Her eyes widened slightly. You leaned over my desk to ask about a bug in the system, I continued. I forgot what I was saying halfway through the explanation. Quote, a small smile appeared on her lips. You hid it well. I'm a professional. She stepped even closer. Now the space between us was barely inches. You're still shaking, she said softly, because this is insane. Maybe. Maybe? Her voice dropped even lower. Or maybe this is the first honest risk you've taken in a long time. My heart hammered. She looked at me for another second. Then she whispered something that changed the air in the room. Ben, if we do this, we don't do it halfway. And suddenly I realized something. This wasn't about a text message anymore. It was about a decision that could rewrite both of our lives. The only question left was I brave enough to make it? Madison's question stayed in the air. Are you brave enough to make it? For most of my life, the answer would have been simple. No. I was the guy who chose safe apartments, safe routines, safe decisions. I was the guy who watched risks from a distance and told himself he was smarter for avoiding them. But standing there in my living room with Madison only inches away, something inside me shifted. Not reckless, just honest. I don't want to pretend tonight didn't happen, I said. The words felt heavier than I expected. Madison didn't react immediately. She watched me carefully, like she was testing whether the statement would hold up under pressure. You understand what that means, she said, mostly. Try me. It means this becomes real. Yes. It means we deal with HR. Yes. It means I probably move teams. Almost certainly. And it means people will talk. Madison gave a small shrug. People already talk. I sighed. That part doesn't make it less terrifying. For the first time that night, her expression softened. You're allowed to be scared. I just prefer not to ruin my career in the process. Her lips curved slightly. Your career will survive. You sound very confident about that. I am. Why? She met my eyes calmly. Because I won't let it hurt you. That sentence landed differently than everything else. Not romantic, not dramatic, protective. You don't control the entire company, I said. No, she replied, but I do understand how it works. I studied her for a moment. You've already thought about this. Yes. For how long? Madison hesitated. Then she admitted quietly. Longer than I probably should have. That surprised me. You've been thinking about this before tonight? Her smile was faint. Ben, I'm the head of engineering. My job is literally anticipating problems before they happen. So you anticipated accidentally receiving a confession text from one of your developers? No, but I anticipated what I would do if the line between us ever blurred. I rubbed the back of my neck. And what did you decide? That if it ever happened, we would handle it the right way. Meaning? We remove the power imbalance immediately. Transfer? Yes. No hiding. No. No office flirting. Absolutely not. I nodded slowly. Those rules made sense. Actually, they made the situation feel less chaotic. Still dangerous, but not reckless. Madison stepped back slightly and looked around the apartment again. You don't have much furniture, she observed. I move a lot for work. Or you avoid settling. That comment felt too accurate. I prefer flexibility, I said. She smiled knowingly. Translation: you don't like attachments. Translation: I don't like complications. Madison tilted her head slightly. And what do you think I am? I hesitated. A complication. She laughed softly. That's fair. We stood there for another moment. Then she reached into her coat pocket again. This time she pulled out something small. A folded piece of paper. What's that? I asked. My son's drawing. She unfolded it carefully and held it out. The picture was simple, crayon lines, a small house, a stick figure boy, and a taller stick figure woman holding his hand. That's Ethan, she said quietly. And you? Yes. I studied the drawing. There was something unexpectedly powerful about it. So he knows about you, I said. He knows I work a lot. That's different. She nodded. It is. Quote. Madison folded the drawing again and slid it back into her pocket. I'm telling you this because if we do this, my life isn't simple. I didn't expect it to be. I'm a mother first, she said. My career comes second. Where do I fit into that list? Her eyes searched my face. That depends on you. I took a breath. I don't do casual well. Neither do I. That's good. Why? Because casual would be easier. She smiled slightly. Yes, and easier things are rarely worth it. The room felt quiet again. Heavy. Then Madison looked at the clock on my wall. It's late. Yeah. I shouldn't stay. That sentence surprised me. Why not? Because if I stay, we skip too many steps. What steps? The ones that keep this from becoming a disaster. I understood what she meant. This moment already felt intense enough. If it went further tonight, the emotional gravity would only get stronger. And what happens next? I asked. Madison slipped her coat back on. Tomorrow I'll send you an address. An address? A neutral place. Neutral, quote. Yes. No apartments. No office. No blurred lines. I nodded slowly. That sounds responsible. She opened the door. The hallway outside was dim and quiet. Before stepping out, Madison paused. Ben. Yeah? You didn't have to tell the truth tonight. I know. But you did. I figured it was time to try something different. Her eyes softened slightly. That's a good start. She stepped into the hallway. Then she turned back one last time. Just so we're clear, she said. About what? I didn't come here because of the text. My eyebrows lifted. Then why? Madison smiled faintly. I came because I already knew. Knew what? She looked directly into my eyes. That, you felt it too. Then she walked down the hallway, and I stood there with my door half open, realizing the safest life I had ever built for myself had just quietly ended. The next morning felt surreal. Everything in the office looked the same desks, the same monitors, the same low hum of keyboards and quiet conversations. But my brain kept replaying the night before. Madison in my apartment, her son's drawing, the decision we had just made. Around 10 in the morning, she walked into the engineering meeting. Composed, focused, professional. If anyone in the room suspected anything, they gave no sign. She presented project updates, assigned deadlines, asked technical questions. Exactly the same Madison everyone respected. Except now I knew something no one else in the room did. Underneath that calm leadership was the woman who had stood in my living room the night before and admitted she had been thinking about this for months. Once our eyes met briefly across the table. Only for a second. But it was enough to make my pulse jump. At 4:30 that afternoon, my phone buzzed. One message. An address in Cambridge. Underneath it, just 2 words. 6:15. Tonight. No explanation, no emojis, just coordinates. My stomach tightened. This wasn't flirting. This was the moment where the decision became real. I packed my laptop slowly and told my team I had an appointment. Then I walked out of the building, trying to look calm. Inside, I felt like someone about to jump out of an airplane. The place turned out to be a small wine bar near the river. Quiet, low lighting. The kind of place people chose when they wanted serious conversations. I arrived 10 minutes early and picked a table near the back. My heart kept pounding. Not from fear exactly, more like anticipation. At exactly 6:15, the door opened. Madison stepped inside. No blazer, no office armor, just a black sweater and jeans. For the first time since I met her, she didn't look like my boss. She looked like a woman deciding whether to change her life. She saw me and walked over. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi." She sat down across from me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Madison leaned forward slightly. "I want to do this the right way," she said. "If there is a right way." I nodded. "Me too." She studied my face carefully. "Ben, if we choose this, it changes everything." "I know." She held my gaze. "And I need to know something before we go any further." "What?" Quote. Her voice dropped almost to a whisper. "Are you ready for the part where things get complicated?" And somehow I already knew that whatever she was about to say next would be the real test. Madison's question sat between us like a quiet warning. "Are you ready for the part where things get complicated?" The wine bar was calm around us. Low music. Soft conversation from other tables. But my chest felt tight. Because deep down I knew she wasn't talking about office gossip anymore. She was talking about real life. "I think things already got complicated," I said. Madison smiled faintly. "You have no idea." The waiter came by and asked if we wanted drinks. Neither of us had even touched the menus. Madison ordered a glass of red wine. I asked for water. The waiter left. Madison watched me with quiet amusement. "You're really nervous." "I feel like I'm negotiating a merger that could ruin my career." Fair comparison. Except the merger might also ruin my personal life. Her smile softened. "Only if we do it badly." I leaned forward slightly. "Okay, let's talk about the complicated part." Madison nodded once. "Good." She took a breath. Then she said the thing that made the entire situation heavier. "My son is coming to Boston next month." I blinked. "Next month?" "Yes." "He's visiting?" "For 2 weeks." She studied my reaction carefully. "I don't introduce people into Ethan's life casually. I wouldn't expect you to." "Good." Her fingers traced the edge of the table for a moment. "Ben, if we start something, I need to know you understand that my life isn't just mine." "I figured that. But understanding and living it are different things." "That's fair." Madison nodded slowly. "I've dated since the divorce." "How many people?" "2. And?" "One wanted to compete with my career." "That sounds exhausting." It was. "And the other?" Quote, "He wanted me to slow down my life to match his." "That also sounds exhausting." She laughed quietly. "Exactly." I leaned back in my chair. "So what makes me different?" Madison didn't answer immediately. Instead, she asked a question of her own. "When you picture your future, what does it look like?" The question caught me off guard. I've never been big on long-term plans. Try anyway. I thought about it. My work matters. She nodded. I know. I like building things. Software, systems, stuff that works. That's why you're good at your job. But outside of that, I hesitated. Madison waited patiently. I guess I want something steady, I said. What kind of steady? Not boring. Good. Just something real. Madison studied me for a long moment. Then she said quietly, That's exactly what I want too. The waiter returned with our drinks. We thanked him and waited until he walked away. Madison took a sip of her wine. Then she leaned forward slightly. So let's talk about rules. I nodded. Rules are good. Rule number 1, she said. No flirting at the office. That's easy. No late-night work messages that turn personal. Also easy. No secrets that create rumors. That one might be harder. She smiled faintly. That's why rule number 4 exists. What's that? Quote, we tell HR. My stomach tightened. That soon? Yes. Why? Because hiding things gives power to gossip. She took another sip of wine. I'd rather control the story than let someone else invent it. That sounded exactly like something a department head would say. You've really thought this through, I said. I had to. Why? Madison met my eyes. Because if we do this, I want it to last. That sentence hit harder than I expected. Not playful, not casual, intentional. And if it doesn't last? I asked. Her expression didn't change. Then we end it like adults. And go back to being coworkers? She shrugged slightly. People recover from worse. I rubbed my hands together slowly. This is a lot. Yes. You're surprisingly calm about it. Madison smiled faintly. I've been through chaos before. Your divorce? Yes. What happened? She hesitated. Then she answered honestly. My ex-husband thought my career would slow down once we had Ethan. And it didn't. No. What happened then? He resented it. That's rough. Quote, yes. Madison's voice stayed calm, but there was a quiet sadness underneath it. I promised myself after that I would never build my life around someone who needed me to be smaller. That sounds fair. It's necessary. She looked at me carefully. You've never asked me to be smaller. That would be stupid. Why? Because the thing I admire most about you is how strong you are. Her eyes softened slightly. That's a dangerous compliment. Why? Because it makes me want to trust you. I'm okay with that. She smiled again. Then she said something that made my pulse jump. Come with me. I blinked. Where? The river. Right now? Yes. We paid the bill and stepped outside. The evening air was cool. The city lights reflected on the wet pavement from earlier rain. We walked side by side toward the Charles River. For a few minutes, neither of us spoke. The quiet felt comfortable. When we reached the water, Madison stopped. The river moved slowly under the city lights. She turned to face me. Ben. Yeah? Quote, if this goes wrong, it will hurt. I know. It might hurt Ethan, too. That made the moment heavier. I would never hurt him intentionally, I said. I believe that. She stepped a little closer, but good intentions don't always protect people. That's true. The wind moved her hair slightly. Madison looked at me for a long moment. Then she asked one more question. Are you still scared? Yes. She smiled softly. Good. Good? Fear means you understand the stakes. She stepped closer again. Now the distance between us was almost gone. My heart started pounding. You're shaking again, she said quietly. I noticed. Madison raised her hand slowly. Her fingers rested lightly against my chest. Right over my heart. Your life has been built on safe choices. she said softly. That's true. Maybe safe isn't always the same as happy. The words felt like a challenge. I looked into her eyes. I'm willing to risk it. Her expression softened. For me? Yes. For Ethan too? Quote, yes. Madison searched my face like she was looking for doubt. Finally, she whispered, okay. Then she leaned forward and kissed me. It wasn't rushed, not dramatic, just slow, careful, like two people testing something fragile. Her lips were warm. My hand moved instinctively to her waist. She didn't pull away. The kiss deepened slightly, months of tension melting into one quiet moment beside the river. When she finally pulled back, her forehead rested lightly against mine. We really can't do this at the office, she said softly. I know. No signals. No signals. No touching. Definitely no touching. She laughed quietly. Then she stepped back. But before the distance fully returned, she took my hand. Just for a moment. Her fingers intertwined with mine. Ben, she said softly. Yes? I want to see where this goes. My chest felt lighter than it had all day. Me too. We started walking back toward the street. When we reached the brighter lights, we let go of each other's hands. The world outside the river didn't know what had just started. But I did. And somehow I had the feeling that the hardest part of this story was still coming. The hardest part started the next afternoon, not at the river, not during the kiss, but in the most ordinary place possible, a conference room with gray walls and fluorescent lights. At exactly 2 p.m., I walked into the HR office with my heart beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. Madison was already sitting at the table. Calm. Focused. Exactly like she looked in every leadership meeting. Except this time the stakes were personal. Karen from HR closed the door behind me. Thank you both for coming, she said politely. Her tone was professional, but there was something cautious underneath it. Madison didn't hesitate. She folded her hands on the table. We wanted to speak with you before rumors start. Karen's eyebrows lifted slightly. That's appreciated. My stomach tightened. This was happening faster than I expected. Karen opened a thin folder in front of her. We received a concern this morning about potential boundary issues within the engineering department. Quote, I felt my pulse jump. Someone had noticed something, maybe Mark, maybe someone else. Karen looked at Madison first. As department head, do you want to explain? Madison nodded once. Yes. She didn't look nervous, didn't look embarrassed. She just spoke calmly. Ben and I have started seeing each other outside of work. The words landed heavily in the quiet room. Karen nodded slowly. Thank you for being direct. Then she turned to me. Ben? My voice felt steadier than I expected. That's correct. Karen leaned back slightly. The company policy is clear about relationships within reporting structures. I know, Madison said. That's why we're here. Karen flipped through the folder. The cleanest solution is a transfer. My chest tightened slightly, even though I already knew that was coming. A transfer to another engineering team would remove the reporting conflict. Madison spoke before Karen finished. That's what we want. Karen looked at me. Ben, are you comfortable with that? 6 years. That's how long I had been on my current team. Same desk, same coworkers, same routine, safe, predictable. Everything my life had always been built around. But Madison looked at me calmly, not pressuring, just trusting. I took a breath. I'll transfer. Karen nodded. There's an opening on the Cambridge platform team. That works, I said. She wrote something down in her notes. Same salary. Same level. New manager. Madison added one more thing. I also want it documented that Ben's performance reviews will remain unaffected. Karen nodded again. That's standard procedure. The meeting ended faster than I expected. Karen shook both our hands. Thank you for handling this professionally. When we stepped out into the hallway, the office suddenly felt quieter than usual. Madison exhaled slowly. You knew this would happen, I said. Yes. You scheduled the meeting. Yes. I shook my head slightly. You really don't like leaving things to chance. No. She looked at me. I also didn't want someone else controlling the story. That made sense. Office rumors had a way of growing out of control. By going to HR ourselves, we had taken that power away. Still, it felt strange, like I had just stepped off a path I had been walking for years. Madison studied my face. You okay? Yeah, you don't sound convinced. I just left the team I built my entire career on. Her expression softened. I know, but it feels worth it. She smiled faintly. Good. Over the next 2 weeks, the office atmosphere changed slightly, not dramatically, just enough to notice. Some coworkers acted normal. Some gave me curious looks. Once I heard my name mentioned in the break room. The conversation stopped when I walked in, but Madison stayed exactly the same. Professional, focused, untouchable. If anyone expected favoritism or awkwardness, they didn't get it. On my last day in the Boston office, she sent me a simple message after work. Proud of you. That one line hit harder than any speech could have. The Cambridge office was different. Smaller. Quieter. No whispers. No curious looks. My new manager treated me like a developer, not a rumor. Slowly, my life started to settle again. Except now there was something new inside it. Madison. Our time together outside work grew naturally. Late dinners, walks along the Charles River, movie nights on my couch. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't chaotic. It was steady. And somehow steady didn't feel boring anymore. One evening she came over looking exhausted. She dropped her bag near the couch and kicked off her shoes. All day I'm Madison the boss, she said quietly. I just want to be Madison the person for a while. I sat beside her, then be her. She leaned her head against my shoulder. The apartment felt warm and quiet. After a few minutes, she spoke again. My son arrives next week. The words made my chest tighten. Ethan? Yes. You're nervous. Very. Why? She looked up at me. Because I want you to meet him. That sentence carried more weight than anything else she had said since the HR meeting. Meeting her son meant something real. Something long-term. I'd like that, I said. You're sure? Quote. I'm nervous too. She smiled slightly. That's a good sign. Quote. The day Ethan arrived felt strangely familiar. Like the night Madison knocked on my apartment door. That same nervous energy. That same feeling that something important was about to happen. He was smaller than I expected. Curly hair. Sharp eyes. And the kind of curiosity kids have when they're trying to figure out who someone is. So you build stuff on computers? He asked. I try to. Like games? Sometimes. His eyes lit up. That was a good sign. We sat at the kitchen table while he showed me his tablet. It freezes sometimes, he said. That's because you have too many apps open, I explained. He watched carefully while I showed him how to fix it. When the screen started working smoothly again, he looked at me like I had performed magic. You're good at this, he said. Madison watched quietly from the counter. Later that night, after Ethan went to bed, she stood in the kitchen with tears in her eyes. He likes you, she whispered. I like him too. Madison stepped closer. Her forehead rested lightly against mine. Just like it had beside the river weeks earlier. This started with a mistake, she said softly, but it doesn't feel like one anymore. No, I said. It really doesn't. For the first time since this whole story began, everything actually felt right. And I had the feeling that the next choice we made together was going to define the rest of our lives. 3 months passed before I realized something strange. I had stopped waiting for things to fall apart. For most of my life, happiness had always felt temporary, like a fragile system running on unstable code. One bug, one unexpected input, and the whole thing would crash. But life with Madison didn't feel fragile. It felt built, carefully, piece by piece. Cambridge turned out to be exactly the change I needed. The new engineering team was smaller and more experimental, less politics, more building. My new manager cared about results, not rumors. Within weeks, I was deep into projects that actually excited me again. The strange part was how quickly the old tension disappeared. In Boston, I had always been the quiet developer in the corner. In Cambridge, people actually asked for my ideas. It took a while to get used to that. One afternoon, my manager leaned over my desk and said, "You know you're running the smartest solutions in this room, right?" I laughed awkwardly. "I'm just solving bugs." He shook his head. "You're solving systems." That night, I told Madison about it. She was curled up on my couch with one of Ethan's drawings spread across the coffee table. "You see?" she said. "I told you the transfer wouldn't ruin your career. You're annoyingly good at predicting things. It's part of the job." Ethan started visiting more often. At first, he treated me like a guest, then like a helper. Eventually, like part of the routine. One Saturday afternoon, he walked into the living room holding a small plastic robot he had built from spare parts. "It keeps falling over," he said. I took a look at it. "The weight distribution is off." He blinked. "The what?" "The balance." I adjusted the legs slightly. The robot stood up straight. Ethan's eyes widened. "You fixed it!" Quote. Madison watched from the kitchen doorway. The look on her face said everything. Later that night, after Ethan had gone to bed, she stepped onto the balcony where I was standing. The city lights reflected off the river in the distance. "You're good with him," she said quietly. "I like him. He likes you too." I leaned against the railing. "That kid is going to build something incredible one day." Madison smiled. "He already is." Then she added something softer. "Thank you." "For what?" "For not being afraid of my life." That sentence hit deeper than she probably realized. "Your life isn't the scary part," I said. "What is?" Quote, "The idea of losing it." Madison didn't answer. She just slipped her hand into mine. 6 months after that first text message, Brian finally came to visit Boston. We were sitting in a bar near the harbor when he leaned across the table. "So let me get this straight," he said. "You accidentally confessed your feelings to your boss." "Yes." "She came to your apartment." "Yes." "You transferred teams." "Yes." Quote, "And now you're basically part of a small family?" "That's about right." Brian stared at me for a full 10 seconds. Then he shook his head. "I write the message as a joke, and somehow you turn it into a love story. Life is weird like that." He lifted his glass. "To catastrophic texting mistakes." I laughed and clinked my glass against his. "To catastrophic texting mistakes." That night when I got home, Madison was already there. She had Ethan's drawing spread out on my coffee table again. The same one she had shown me the first night. The small house. The stick figure boy. The taller woman holding his hand. But this time, there was something new on the page. Another stick figure. Standing beside them, I picked up the drawing. "Did Ethan add this?" Quote, Madison nodded. "Yesterday." I looked closer. The stick figure had messy hair and long arms. It looked suspiciously like me. My chest tightened. Madison stepped closer. He asked if it was okay. "What did you tell him?" I told him drawings don't have rules. I stared at the picture for a long moment. Then I said quietly, "I think this might be the most important code review of my life." She laughed softly. "You're such a developer. Occupational hazard." Madison looked at me carefully. "You okay with it?" Quote, "With what?" "With the idea that you're not just part of my life anymore." I took a breath. The old version of me might have panicked. The safe version. The one who built walls around every part of his routine. But that version of me didn't exist anymore. "I'm more than okay with it," I said. Madison's eyes softened. Then she asked something unexpected. "Do you remember the first message you sent me?" I laughed. How could I forget? She pulled out her phone and opened the conversation thread. Then she handed it to me. The message was still there, exactly the same. "You're truly captivating. I know this might cross a line, but I'd regret not saying it." Madison looked at me. "You meant it then?" "Yes." "And now?" I took the phone from her hand. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard for a second. Then I typed, slowly, carefully. You're still captivating. I paused, then added one more sentence. And I'm really glad I crossed that line. Madison read the message. Her smile spread slowly. Then she typed something back and turned the phone toward me. I'm coming over to your place now. I laughed. You're already here. I know. She stepped closer and wrapped her arms around me. The apartment felt warm, safe. Not the quiet kind of safe I used to chase, but the kind built with risk, with honesty, with the decision to stay. Madison rested her forehead against mine. You know what the funny part is? She said softly. What? That message was supposed to be a mistake. I shook my head. Maybe. She smiled. Maybe not. Ethan's drawing sat on the coffee table beside us. 3 stick figures, standing next to a little house. Not perfect, not symmetrical, but real. And in that moment, I realized something that made the entire story make sense. Some messages are accidents, some are confessions. But sometimes, the wrong text is just life's way of sending the right person. Because the truth is simple. Some risks break your life, but the right one builds it.